I am.
Before we jump into our review of our podcast 2023, we would like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are recording today, the Turrbal and Yagara people, and pay our respects to the elders, both past, present and emerging. Welcome to the table. There's no guest
It's
at
just
our
us.
podcast update today. It's just you and
I
I.
hope you're not bored, folks.
Yes, unfortunately, it's just Michael and old boring Emily. We just wanted, I guess, to film a short recording to show our appreciation and gratitude to everyone who's supported us in making our podcast series this year, and also do a little reflection on the episodes that we filmed.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we just have a bit of a pause and a reflection on the guests that we interviewed and what we learned out of talking to the guests.
Which is a lot. Yeah.
It is a lot.
This isn't the first podcast series that we have done at Helix. We have done the Helix Essential series, which was a Facebook Live in 2020
Wasn't that?
COVID, which was stressful navigating Facebook Live, technical difficulties from our own home offices.
Hanging from our fingertips up.
Yeah, that was very stressful. And then we did the Build Back Better series in 2021, which you interviewed a variety of different guests, which was mainly focused on women in industry. And I was helping edit with those. And then at the end of last year, in December 2022, you asked me, I say ask, but probably you told me that we were going to do a podcast series. Of course I was going to say yes, nervously. And now we have recorded 14 episodes since February or March this year.
And it's been fantastic. And the thing about when I asked you, I'm sure you had no idea that I always envisioned that you'd be the lead interviewer. And I would just be there as an increasingly non-important support person. Because I just know that you've got great communication skills and you've got an inquiring mind, and you're also, as opposed to me, really well prepared. So I knew you'd be prepared, and the way we went to the trouble of having the pre-podcast chats with the guests and settling the agenda, if you like, with them. Some of those pre-podcast chats were as good as the actual podcast chats.
They were. I wish that we had recorded them.
So it was so important to put the guests to ease. It gave you a good feel for what we're going to be talking about. And then we did the actual interview. So I knew that you'd provide the structure and around what would be necessary for us to be successful as a bit of an odd pair.
Yeah, I think that I would definitely not have felt comfortable doing the podcast chats el solo without having you there to bounce off ideas and help with active listening and answering questions. Probably times where you saw me going, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to be saying back?
The thing about the podcast is we're really just both wanting to talk to people and get them to open up about industry issues so we can share that with the people that are interested in listening to us and watching us. So it's all just having enough knowledge and enough grace and enough good interpersonal skills just to put the guest at ease, ask the high level questions, and then the guest is the person that conveys all the information. I've seen some podcasts where the interviewers take up more time than the actual guests in terms of talking. That to me is the wrong way around.
Yeah.
It's just we provide a platform, the guests provide the information, and we just really there to ask 5 questions.
And I think a lot of the time I got really nervous before we filmed, and what ended up happening was we planned our questions and the direction that we wanted to go with. But then the guest was just so knowledgeable or passionate about their about industry and their role in particular, and the questions that we had told them that were coming, that they were just able to take it away and run. And it was probably that we could have recorded for double the time or 3 times the amount of time, and there was no awkward times that I was worried about filling or having to jump too much. I just kind of asked the pre-planned question and off we go.
And just go with it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that this industry is full of great people, and it doesn't matter whether or not they're big policy brains, and you need some of those people, or not they're heads of anointed heads of big construction companies, or got real independent businesses going. The industry is so diverse, and we've got so many great people that you get the right people to talk, and it's just endless. The stories, the connections, the issues that they can raise in a practical sense. We might talk about some of them now, but you hear concerns about the industry when it's sort of spoken in a really sort of policy level, but it means something so much more when somebody is actually telling you in real life how that policy or how that piece of legislation or how that challenge is impacting their business.
Also help that kind of real life feedback for me personally helps my understanding so much.
And that's
take it off paper and to actually see it in play.
And the thing about construction law is just one little niche of the industry. Very vital, very important, but it's given the construction law exists to help people run their business. And then to understand their business, you've got to understand how they interrelate with everybody else, their suppliers, their clients, the regulators, government. It's councils. It's just a huge interconnected chains. And if, as a construction lawyer, and you are a good construction lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer, as we say many times, if you can understand how you are giving advice in that very broad understanding of the industry, the advice will be so much more meaningful, so much more relevant to the person.
Very true, Michael. Those words of wisdom. I think that's a very good time to run into all the different perspectives that we've heard on the podcast and list out some of our guests.
A roll call.
Yeah, a roll call. I like that. So we first started the podcast series with Kate Raymond, who was also, I'm pretty sure, on the Healing Essential series and on the Build Back Better series. So we love having Kate on all of the series that we have and on our panels.
She's a great go-to person. She's a great giver and a great supporter of everything we do at Healing.
Totally.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. And we called that episode From Regulator to Advocator, and I think that something that stuck with me after Kate's episode was just kind of seeing how her role and perspective changed as she shifted throughout her career, and also how she does advocate for what she believes in her stance in the construction industry. Particularly, we spoke about the NCC changes,
at that time.
and I learned a lot about what those were and what they meant and the impacts that they would have and what she's advocating for.
And at that time, the advocating for the issues subsequent to that, that podcast being published, a lot of the concerns that she was advocating for were subsequently resolved with changes to the implementation scheduling. So just goes to show you that if you've got good, strong advocacy, people who can know how to do it, they can do a whole lot of good for the industry.
And then I might just whiz through our guests, otherwise I'll be here for 4 million years. We had Michaela Heinonen. We have Inuka McMahon.
That was
a standout episode to me, just as a young woman in the industry. She's awesome, and we were talking about accelerating your career. And yeah, that was just fantastic. I think all people should watch that.
I remember that one so well that Janelle and you were meant to do the introduction, and I was meant to slip into the after 10 minutes. And I knew
you never made it.
I just knew that when you three got talking, there was a possibility of me doing. So you and Janelle and you did the whole thing, and I just sat in the corner. That didn't surprise me, but I just knew that would happen that way.
John Lowry. We spoke to John about his career as a QS and also his passion for innovation. We had Robert Spira, former head of policy at the ACA, and I was blown away by the way that his brain works and how fast he's pumping out all of those
another big policy brain.
Data and research. Yeah. Then we had Jack Hutchinson. Of course, Hutchinson Builders, and that was really cool to have Jack on, and he was our first guest that came within the construction firm, so it was all a different perspective from him. We spoke to Jason Banks from TIAX, and that was really impactful, I think, that conversation, and a really important topic to have.
Great business, great people behind it, with great intent, and can't speak highly enough of them.
We spoke to the Eve Renovation ladies. We spoke to Laura Almeida, and that was also a very impactful conversation. And there were lots of points in that chat that really stuck with both of us, particularly about procurement of women's workwear on projects and how that's a barrier for women entering industry in ways that I wouldn't have really ever thought before how much that spreads. But yeah, we sat with that one for a while.
It was just to hear the challenges that have been ongoing for a number of years. Great people.
Yeah, great people. We spoke with Mike Carney, who is a non-bank financier at Dennings Investment Partners, and this is probably the podcast where I knew least about what his role was in the industry of the entire series. Didn't really know where non-bank financier fit into the puzzle. Hadn't never really thought about the benefits of it. Had a little bit of, I don't know. I learned a lot from talking to Mike.
Yeah, it's a growing segment, and it opens a sort of lifts the lid on the industry and the constant struggle that clients have to make sure that they've got enough finance, even through the traditional banking sectors or the non-banking sectors, so the projects can be started and finished.
And the flexibility that a non-bank financier can have in comparison to a traditional bank. Yeah. Then we spoke to Matt Burns from Roberts Co. That was an awesome chat. That was our one and only teens chat, because Matt's down in Sydney, and he was awesome as well. And they have such a great company culture from talking to Matt.
Great culture that's been built up in that business, and we've very much put people at the centre of everything they do. They're people, a great chat.
Yeah, and then as of the time recording this, we have 3 episodes that we're going to release. One is with Caitlin Shields, and Caitlin is a 5D quantity surveyor and partner at Mitchell Brandman, and Caitlin was just awesome. I bailed Caitlin up in the bathroom at a UBIA event to come on the podcast. And she said yes, so that will be an amazing episode to come out. And we also spoke with Jason Banks from Q Shelter, mainly about affordable and social housing and the impacts that some of the mega events are going to have, and all of the population growth in Queensland and how that will impact on social and affordable housing. And also we spoke with Karen from Dandelion Safe Homes, which was another episode that left a lasting impact and was a heavier episode because she's just doing incredible work from domestic violence victims and shelters by building a program focused on building tiny homes.
Yeah, which with her way of managing a very troublesome relationship, that sort of weaved for me how important the industry is, the construction industry, because it's sort of weaved tiny homes. There are problems associated with the regulation of tiny homes through the councils. Different councils have different requirements. But here was a person who saw tiny homes as a very important part of her ongoing recovery from a domestic violence. So she became a building designer, designed her own tiny home, and then arranged for it to be built, and then has raised 4 kids in that tiny home. And is now in the process of providing a wraparound service for other domestic violence people where tiny homes are now a feature in terms of designing them, so that facilitates accommodation but much more support. So it just sort of emphasised for me that the construction industry is so vital in terms of, people just think of buildings, but they're big infrastructure things you drive on, or you go to the Gabba for a big event or something, whatever it is. But it's so vital because it just connects. It provides a requirement or not a requirement. It provides a solution to people's social issues. So it just reminded me that the best part of the construction industry is when you think of it in terms of the impact it has on people, positive impact it has on people, positive impact it can have on the environment, making changes, positive impact it can have in social issues, positive impact it can have through, really strategic procurement processes, like a goal and all.
When people come together and support each other, it can be pretty profound.
Yeah, it's just not building, you know what I mean? So you get in, until you hear people's stories and how they need things to happen around them, and the construction industry is the centre of construction and building, is the centre of doing a lot of that. You're not going to solve the social affordable housing issue without the building and construction issue. You're not going to, lack of housing affordability needs. All this stuff has to be constructed. The big infrastructure projects, the renewable projects up in North Queensland, everything like that. It's construction. It's going to have massive challenges in terms of how it's all scheduled and implemented, but it's in the Olympics. It's just so vital for so many things that happen in our lives.
Do you think that was the most significant takeaway from the series that you've had?
Doing this with you has reminded me that the construction industry just provides so many inputs to every part of our life. We're not, we want to go to see a football game, it's a stadium built. We drive on, new highways and, across the tunnels and then everything. It just reminds me that you can get just sort of in a sort of prison of just looking at construction from a construction point of view. The best part of the construction industry is actually improves. It's got the capabilities of improving people's lives. So that was the reminder for me when you talk to all these different people from big policy brains to the Eve ladies and Karen and all that sort of stuff. Everyone's fighting or agitating or supporting the industry to be the best it can. So it fulfills all these social and social needs. What about you? What was your biggest? What did you take away from?
I have really along the same lines as yours, and in other words, I was very surprised, I suppose, how each of the key themes and issues that we spoke about that kept reappearing in each episode, for where each guest was speaking to them about was in a different role in industry, how connected each of the issues were, and how they were just basically this big spider web where one issue led into another and led into different things and caused, and then this person over here as a QS is having this, is impacted by one issue, and then somebody over here is at the cause of that, and I don't know how to explain it. I think that when we went into our second episode with Mikhail, and he brought up this massive spider web on the board, and it was a spider web about, we were talking about supporting young workers and in industry and mental health and wellness of them. And it was this big spider web where each issue led into another, which led into another, which connected up here. That's kind of how this whole podcast series has been for me. Like, even though we kind of wanted to focus in on one thing and have a theme per episode, it always came back to the same key topics.
Yeah, and some of those key topics are, read through lack of diversity, gender issues,
productivity and labour shortage, and all the same things that come up at every single construction event that you go to now. But it was interesting to see it from everyone's different perspective and the different ways that they're being impacted by it or seeing it impacting.
I think you've said the same thing as me, but we said it out but different words. But it's the impact, the spider web connectivity of the industry is just so broad and so deep that and that's why it's such a great industry, because it's got the ability to change people's lives for the good. It's also got some challenges that you've got to manage in terms of the way in which programs and builds and construction is rolled out. But if you just impactfulness, what homelessness can only be solved with things being constructed. Improved housing affordability for normal Aussies can only be solved through strategic construction. Other issues too, like taxation, other issues like that. But the construction industry is literally at the heart of just about everything that goes on in our lives.
I also think I'm going to actually add 3 things that I learned, surprised by learned. I loved hearing what everyone does in their day-to-day role, and really, really love asking people what they do in their job. What does their job look like? like learning about what a QS does, and do you go back and forth, and I want to hear exactly what you do, like hearing about what somebody does in a policy role, because it's kind of like when someone says they're a consultant, you go, what do you actually do every single day? I loved hearing from like Rob and Kate what they do on day to day, like hearing, it's so interesting.
Yeah. And the Eve ladies, you know, they're
yeah,
just
what
an
do you
example.
do?
The battles, the daily battles that they've got
Yeah.
there, just to try to get floor space in
Yeah.
change for their major, you know,
For their work,
for their work just the, so it's
Yeah.
all these different people. And that's
Mm.
the great thing about, like I said, tens of thousands of people all doing different things
Yeah.
in this great, you know, building and construction industry. And I just think sometimes the general sort of vibe through the newspapers is all doom and gloom.
Mm.
And I lived in that doom and gloom when it comes to security payment and insolvency. I understand that there's problems, but the industry is so great and so resilient, and it's got so many great people in it that I think that the next decade is going to be a golden decade, particularly for people in Queensland. You know, because it's just got so much going for it in terms of the rollout of renewables and the big major infrastructure projects going to be built in the Olympics and everything like that. And none can happen. None can happen without people doing things.
Agreed. The last point I'll say in my list of 3 is I was surprised how willing, and it's not even willing, it's enthusiastic and happy people were to say yes and join us on the podcast. We didn't have to bribe anyone to come on or pay them or give them food or anything or follow them up. I was surprised. I didn't expect when we originally went out to people that we would get so many yeses, and it would just be easy to sign someone up for a pre-podcast chat. I totally thought that we'd have to be out there trying to convince people to come and join us. So I was so thrilled with that, and so
I think
it's
that
time to say thank you.
yes, and I think that just makes the point that the way people were happy to come and provide their time and
Give
their
their time to
so
share all
well
their thoughts.
because they're passionate about what they do. They love what they do. They're prepared to honestly talk about the challenges that are associated with what they do. But that's why I think what you and I do, it's a privilege to do what you and I do, because we get to provide the platform for these people to come in and express and say what they want to say, and then that information is passed on to whoever watches us and listens to it. And that's, you and I got no agenda other than providing a platform. Safe, non-threatening, come along and have a chat to us and we'll promote, what your business is or what organisation you work for, and we'll help you get the message out.
Yeah. So on that note, we would just like to extend a huge thank you to all of our guests, firstly, who came along and took their time to join us on the podcast. We are so thankful, and I'm really appreciative of that, and of how much I've learned from each of our guests as well. So I couldn't be more thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just echo what Em says. So grateful.
The second people that we'd like to thank is the Helix team, the whole Helix team, which kindly let Michael and I gallivant off downstairs to do our pre-podcast chats and our little meetings, you and I, and to take time to record the episodes, and also give us the resources to be able to produce the episodes. So you wouldn't get that in a lot of companies, and I'm truly grateful for that.
I just once again like to echo what Em said. I'm so grateful for the support that you and I get have got for doing this.
Yeah.
And generally, all the support I get for any of my crazy ideas. Whatever I do as a non-lawyer, I need the support of overwhelmingly lawyers or legal clerks coming through. So, just so grateful for the support that comes from all the people at Hills.
Mm. I'd also like to thank Ryan with my whole heart for helping us edit and produce the podcast episodes. Without Ryan, I would have had a meltdown, which is what kind of happened in episode 1 and 2. So thank gosh for Ryan. If anyone, we will link his details down below. If anyone needs any video editing or podcast producing, he is the go-to man, and that's how all of this comes together.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. You took so much of a burden off Em when she tried to do.
Oh my gosh, I'm never going to attempt to do something like that again. It is not easy.
So yeah, I think thanks very much, Ryan. And people can get the details from when we link it through.
Yeah, and the final person I'd like to thank is Michael for always taking time and being so generous with me and teaching me and giving me new perspectives on topics and ideas and challenging my way of thinking. So with that, there would be no Deconstruction podcast without you having challenged me to do it. And so I'm very thankful, Michael.
Thanks, Em. And I just like to acknowledge how proud I am of how you've done this year. I knew right from the very beginning that you'd be sensation in this role. I knew you've got great communication skills, you've got great integrity, you're detailed and you get prepared and all the things that I don't do. So you do the best that you could, in terms of preparing, but you're also honest. And I think I've said this to you before. You're honest when I don't know how many times I heard you say during the podcast, I didn't know that when a guest said something, and that's just so relatable because it means that something has come into your sort of zone, which means that there's so much information out there that there's so many things out there that people in the construction industry aren't really honest with themselves about what they don't know. I just wish it's hard for all of us to sort of own up to what we don't know. It's much easier to just concentrate on what we do know. So that meant to me that we were getting information that was going to be relatable to the people. You did a great job. Sensational job.
You too. I also think that we've forgotten to thank our viewers. Thank you to all 5 of you out there.
Thank you very much.
There's thank you to my mum for watching. No, thank you for anyone who's listening to this. If you've watched any of our episodes, even if no one watched our episodes, I still think that it's worth my time for how much I've learned this year and the connections that we've made in any case. But it's just a bonus if other people are able to learn something from our phenomenal guests and all of their wealth of knowledge.
That's it.
Well, is that a wrap, Michael?
That's a wrap, Em.
That's a wrap.